Welcome to the Digital Forester podcast, where we talk to foresters about how they are using digital technologies in their day-to-day forestry work. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Forester podcast. Today, I am joined by Olle Gellin. He's the CEO of AirForestry. Olle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. I think our listeners are going to be as well, because we're going to touch on drones, we're going to touch on thinning, we're going to touch on robotics, some automation, maybe something of a flavor we haven't had on the podcast yet. But before we go there, it's customary for our guests to introduce themselves and how they got into forestry. And I know, looking at your LinkedIn profile, there's a rich background in terms of the work you've done, but maybe in terms of that starting point, was it, as a child wandering, the forests of Sweden, or what was it that got you into forestry? Maybe share your story.
Yes, I grew up on a farm outside Uppsala. It's close to Stockholm region. And so when I was a kid, I was sitting in a farm tractor and plowing and doing the fields. And two farms in Sweden usually comes with a lot of forest also. So I've been in the forest from young age, helping my grandpa, my father in the forest by doing thinning by manual for hands. And so there was the start, but also on my mother's side, my grandpa on my mother's side was a feller, professional for one of the biggest forest companies in Sweden until he retired. So I have forestry in my from childhood all the way up.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it's in your blood, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been interested in things, managing and see stuff growing and taking care of nature and make the best of it and make it beautiful. So that's have been an interesting all my life.
Yeah, for sure. So did you know that you wanted to study forestry while you were growing up? Was that just a logical thing, watching your parents and living on a farm and growing up with trees? Was that just a natural next step?
Yeah, so basically when I reached the age of when you will choose school, farming in Sweden was really difficult to make any money on. It was hard to get economics in a farm around. So basically, my family actually quit the farming and rent out the land for bigger farmers that have better capacity. And so I was okay. What shall I do now when I not can keep do be a farmer? So I actually starting into studying mechanical engineering in mechatronics. So that's my degree. So I start my career at Scania Trucks. It's a big truck company and with hybrid development. But then I got offer from my family to move back to the farm and keep running it with the forest and keep renting out the lands and so on. And then I need to go back to my hometown again. And at that moment, the Swedish Research Institute have a position out for an engineer to restart their technical initiative or research on how to make forest machine more efficient, more gentle towards forest and soil and also human beings. So I started on this Swedish Research Institute for like 10 years ago. So I've run a lot of interesting projects towards forest machine in Skogforsk, so it's
Yeah.
called.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll dive into some of those projects, as there's, as we talk about forest machines, different type of digital technology, if you will. So for our listeners, so as the host of the podcast, I always get to ask the really quote unquote dumb questions, but and I blame the listeners. So I always say, for our listeners' benefit, but really it's for me. I'm going to assume mechatronics has nothing to do with transformers and the Decepticons and Autobots. So maybe for our listeners, can you explain what the field of study of mechatronics is?
Yeah, so basically you can say it's the transition between a computer and programming and mechanical movement, moving something like a hydraulic cylinder on an electrical engine and making it perform a task to do a certain task. So that's the thing. something between the computer and the mechanical interface, and how to connect these two. It's what mechatronics is about, more or less.
Okay,
So
very
it's a lot of
cool.
programming. It's a much understanding mechanical phenomenon and how to utilize that in a product or a solution.
For sure, for sure. So definitely interesting. So you are a digital forester by design and training, because if you're in engineering, coding, or that forest engineering, you're very technical by default. Out of curiosity, the family land base, how many hectares is, as you say, you're renting out? Is it a big property, or?
Yeah, it's 100 hectares of land. So it's basically like 35 hectares of farmland for crops growing, and the rest is forest. So
Very
it's a
cool.
fair amount
Yeah,
to take care of. And I try to
absolutely.
do so much as possible by myself, because I say it's my natural gym, so I can go out and exercise my body and doing some good in the forest and create values
Yeah,
as
yeah.
meanwhile. So that's great.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So before we get into AirForestry a little bit more, I know in your LinkedIn profile you mentioned you work for Scania and Skogsfork. I always get it. I think I get closer and closer to saying that, even though in English it's like we all say it's like Skogsfork or something, and the Swedes are, no, it's Skogsfork, and it's like for or something and research it. One of these days I'll become fluent and be able to say it properly. But there was a project you mentioned in your LinkedIn profile around Auto 2 and around
Yes.
Force Machine and digitalization. Like, share what that project was about, and maybe what you learned from it, and your role in creating innovation through that project.
Mm. Yeah, so basically, the Auto 2 project is an initiative that actually I'm behind. So I was at Skogforsk, we saw that the traditional machines had so much more to perform if they increased that automation levels. So we did studying on operators and machines in some stands, and we could see, like, if the operator, if it's a good operator, is a well maintained and trimmed machine, they can produce like 100% more than the average operator do in day-to-day work. And that means there are an upside if you can automate more functions, so the operator can be more alert and running on a higher level the day all day through, not for a short period of time. So that's one reason, but also to make the forestry more productive and more energy efficient. We can see if we increase the automation, it's easy to make electrification. It's also a lots of benefits comes with automatizations. So basically what we did in this project was looking at what is the key driver to make automation more possible in the forest. So the project was divided in like three main components. It was like auto drive, try to auto navigate in a forest from A to B. That was like one. And the other one was like safety. How can we perform safety tasks in the machine? So if we not have the safety, we cannot go to automation. We need to have these first almost. So we did a lot of work with regulations on automation. How can we perform people detection in the forest and so on. And the third main package was remote control or teleoperation to sit on other location, because I think the first step towards like driverless machines, or say, are like removing the operator and put them like in a cabin or on a roadside with much better working environment, without vibration, without noise, without risk of falling from the machines, no falling objects, hazards, and so on. So that's like the first step, and then you can add automation function, and in the future the machine can go to more full automation. And on top of that, you're working with the safety features. So that was
Very
like the
cool.
basic how we initiated and run that project. And the project have been really amazing. There's a lots of outcomes coming out from this project, and in some sense also AirForestry are a spin-off in that sense also, because I realize how hard it is actually to navigate and drive autonomously on the forest floor. So it was easier
Absolutely.
to go up in the air.
Absolutely. Well, maybe that's a good segue, and we'll maybe bounce around for the future, the present, the past. because there's an interesting story there all around. So I know when like I have a Tesla, and it's a smart. I say it's like driving my smartphone with four wheels on it. It's a smart car. Whenever there's something wrong, it'll just do an over-the-air update. And some folks have asked me, it's like, would you be worried about an autonomous feller buncher or a harvester? And I said, well, yes and no. Like on one end, you have this cutting saw, right? But the flip side, there's not that many people out there. And I said, well, I probably would not still be very close to that machine if it was fully autonomous, or even teleops for that matter. And then lo and behold, I'm talking to somebody and they say, oh, have you heard about the AirForestry people? And they've got a drone with a processor, or if that's the right jargon, I'll get you to explain it. And then so I went from the, oh, well, now I'm really not worried about the autonomous feller buncher or harvesters. I'm going to worry about that, drone flying around with a processor. It's like swinging around. I'm of course joking. We'll get you to explain it some more. But I was like, wow, this is kind of now next level. The Amazon's doing packages and whatnot, and then bleeding into forestry. But I love the fact that you said, from that research experience, that operational experience, you realize like this is a really hard space. And I think a lot of people fail to understand that forestry is like, a lot of people just think forestry is so easy. It's like you're just doing that. And I still argue it's one of the most complex environments in the world to actually operate. So maybe with AirForestry, I know doing a bit of research, because again, I was really curious to learn more about this, and I'm excited about this conversation. And now I know in the webpage it talks about Marcus and Moritz coming together at one point. There's a connection, and then you came on board, and it was around September 2019 and then January 2020 that AirForestry launched. But maybe first describe who AirForestry is, and then the genesis, what that spark is, because it's always amazing with founders how they come together. There's always like a bit of magic that happens before the business takes off. But introduce us to AirForestry and how it came to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically, what AirForestry is doing is like more or less we say we reinvent the forestry, and by doing it from the air with high capacity drones, we are enabling thinning out and removing trees from the air with a drone. And the idea, as you mentioned, Morris and Marcus, my co-founders, they met first on a say breakfast event where people come together from all different branches. And Martz is like a flight expert. He have initiated a big project in Sweden by electric aviation project, and have done research in electrical drivetrains and how efficient it is to fly by batteries. And also have a background on leader development at Veoneer. Autoliv is a huge part component manufacturing for the automotive industry. So I have a really good background in sensing also. And Marcus, he joined this event with a background from building up a production unit in agriculture and nature conservation, and have really good in business and strategic and understanding the production unit, how a production unit would look like. So these two started to look into the agriculture, as Marcus was coming from the agriculture side more. But they see huge challenges in the agriculture. It's like event based. It's the spring, it's the harvest. So they couldn't find a spot where the drone can fit and you can have operation and build an organization around the drone. So they said, okay, what other aerial business are there where you have more 365 days work? And we have forest. We Google persons that works with electrification, optimization, and like or in that in the forest, and my name come up really high in this Google search. So they reach out to me, come by and present like, okay, we can build a drone that can fly so much more energy efficient that is actually, then you can drive on the forest floor. I say, okay, you can also mean you can fly with so little energy usage. And they say, yeah. And we can lift like they said the drones like 2, 4, 5, 600 kilos. And so okay, but a log can weigh much more than just that. So we need to approach this from another angle. So I just did a sketch on a napkin on like, yeah, can we harvest smaller trees like in a first commercial thinning operations by just attaching a tool on the tree top and just limb it and cut the tree and lift the complete tree outside. Then we removed so much all other machine complexity. And after they left the room, they come back and say, "Do you want to found a company with us?" And from that napkin sketch, actually, we built all this amazing technologically that we have today, and today we have an amazing journey behind and in front of us also, based on that
Wow.
sketch on harvesting trees from with the drone in one cycle, in one moment, with one drone system.
Wow. Wow. So a napkin, three of you, draw whiteboarding on a napkin. Love it. And like so many great ideas come from that napkin, whether it's coffee or lunch
Actually, it was a
or soda.
whiteboard, but it's like the
A
napkin. It
whiteboard.
was like, yeah, it's quick sketch on a whiteboard. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Amazing. So I'm still blown away. So what you're saying is you got a drone that flies around, picks a tree, delimbs it, cuts it, and airlifts it out.
Yes, correct.
Wow. That's that's pretty pretty amazing actually. So I know our listeners, there's a lot of UAV, UAS, drone nerds, whatever label they want to go by, and I'm sure they're all ask these questions. So I'm just going to rapid fire some questions because it's a fascinating story here. And I know in some of your slogans, like thinning with electric drones or like fossil free thinning, like very powerful taglines that really captures what you're doing. The drone. So tell me about this. I'm assuming this is not a DJI drone you buy from the local hardware store. So maybe tell me about what this thing is. Is it small? Obviously not small if it's doing what it's doing, but what is this thing? Is it like the size of my car? Is it like it's custom, I'm assuming? Tell me about the drone first, and then we'll go into the actual whatever we call a processor head that's doing its
Yeah,
magic from
absolutely,
above.
absolutely. Yeah, so basically, we saw that there are no other drone manufacturers on the market that produces drones for this purpose. And with the skills in our team, and we could say we can do it by ourselves, really efficient and fast. So we actually have built like 4 or 5 drones with this design concept that we are now, but in smaller scales. But now we have the final concept ready for the big drone, and the drone is 6.2 meters in diameter, from one side to another 6 meters. But and it have special features also with tilted rotor blades. That means that we can actually traverse in sideways but without tilting the drones. So that's also a special
Oh,
feature that we have. So we can handling the load and dynamic forces much better than the traditional drone design does. So this is something special we have built in our drone system.
very cool.
Um, so
And so
yes,
I assume it's more than, it's not like a quadcopter. It's multi-rotor. I
yeah,
don't even know if
exact.
I'm using
It's
the right jargon.
exact. So it's 6 rotor blades on this one, and it's because of this design. We need to have 6, at least 6, to make it go in sideways without tilting the drones. So
Very
that's correct.
cool.
It's 6 rotors, and that means also we get a nice redundance in the system. Also, if one propeller or drivetrain breaks, we can still fly with the drone.
Right, right. So at 6.2 meters, this is a big drone. Often we hear the consumer market drone or even consumer flight times around 45 minutes to an hour. So I'm assuming this thing is got some serious battery juice and engineering to be efficient. So how long can this thing stay in the air before not even harvesting or thinning, I should say, but how long can it stay just in flight if it wasn't doing any thinning operations?
Today, the battery has a flight time on up to 30 minutes empty, and during operation, we plan to have like 15 minutes with the battery design we have today. But as we see, the components get lighter and everything gets smoother, so the batteries can shrink or increase the flight time. So we can also design a drone that can fly for longer time. But the nice thing with this system is that we go out to the forest and back to the roadside. We have the possibilities to charge or change battery really quick. So that means that the
Wow.
distance to fly out to the forest and pick a tree and back, it's like this, the battery you actually need on the drone. Then you can
Wow.
make a swap. So that's
Wow.
that makes so the battery requirements are not like so important that we have long flight time on this machine.
Interesting, interesting. So I know doing my own research as the
Mm.
podcast host, AirForestry did a partnership or maybe a trial with. I'm just looking at my notes here. Vanderfall battery power as a service.
Yes.
Vattenfall. I'm probably
Yeah,
pronouncing it.
Vattenfall, exact. Vattenfall. It's a Swedish power distributor, a big power creator and distributor here in Scandinavia. So they have a solution like a power as a solution. So today we rent a mobile battery that we have on a trailer that after the day in the forest we bring back and recharge it on my solar roof that I have, and then we can bring it back out in the forest the next day, empowering the drone system and the operating stations. So
Wow.
that's how the solution will look like in the future also, but with a bigger battery. So we plan for a transportation service that comes out with a charged battery, a grid battery, and on container solutions that provide electricity for the drone system in the field.
Very cool. So when you say fossil free thinning, you guys are really walking the walk with batteries out there. So when you mentioned the drone coming back and to swap it, because again, 15 minutes, while you're doing operations, is this really like a quick swap, like, or is it fancy that the drone is like a Tesla rocket that can reverse land? It comes and switches its own batteries out, or is it a manual just hot swap a new battery in and off it goes? What does that workflow look like?
We need to make it automation. So you swap battery out autonomously. So the drones go in and just swap the battery by itself. That's the
Wow,
target.
cool.
Yeah.
Very,
But we
very
also can
cool.
see that we can, one solution is actually to fast charge the batteries also, because we go from battery to battery, so we don't have the grid limitations you have in the electrical grid. So we can actually fast charge maybe like 4 or 5 minutes and fly 10-15 minutes, and then so on.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So battery management becomes important in this world. Okay, so 6.2 meter drone going out now. Now this thing grabs the top of the tree that it needs to thin and delimbs from top to bottom, and then cuts it at the stump. So is this a thing you bought off the market, or is this again Air Forestry
Yeah.
engineering magic that built this thing?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same story with the harvesting head. Like we looked around, like no, the like harvesting head go from like 800 kilos and upward, more or less. You can find little easier, lighter harvesting heads for like more private forestry with tractors. But so we said no one have done an electrical harvesting head that only weighs 60 kilos. So
Yeah.
why it's best if you do it by yourself also. So today we have built like a bunch of harvesting heads with different type of functions and try them out from a mobile crane today. So we are harvesting trees from a crane with a drone simulation interface.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Very
so
cool.
so we are.
So did it go flawlessly from day one? Uli, I'm assuming there's maybe version 0.1, 0.2, a bit of trial and error. Maybe share some funny stories in terms of early prototypes. Did it go smoothly as planned, or was there some speed bumps, as I like to call it?
Exact. Actually, it's I've gone really well, really from start. As we put together the first tool, like it was weight I think 25 or 30 kilos, without any engines or motors, no cutting blades, just knives, and you can more or less adjust it manual. And I bring it up in there, and it's like, hey, if you have 30 kilos and put knives underneath and drop it over a tree, the branches will just fall off. It's like, okay, you will not drop this on your feet because then you don't have any feet left, and that's only weight like 30 kilos. Uh, so that was the thing, and the main like risk we saw, like, okay, if we attach to the treetop will break and the tool will just fall down. But it was like, okay, the treetop is really stiff and it's hold this tool, and you can bend it a lot, and then okay, this will maybe work. It was really early phase, in direct in the beginning we started these trials. So from that, we have just added functionality by the cutting blade, the feed rollers, to help it get speeds in the beginning, and also moving the log in the harvesting head for cutting it in pieces and so on. And also work with all other types of functions. So basically, no one yet have tried to harvesting trees from above in this sense that we do. So we said, like, no one else knows this better than we, so why not do it by ourselves?
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. So thinking of, in Canada and the US, and then I can only speak to the North America jurisdiction, but when we think about drones, safety is obviously paramount. And we hear about flights, that are line of sight, and then some that are beyond visual line of sight. I guess at 15 meters, 15-minute runs while you're thinning, you're not really going long range beyond visual line of sight. You're kind of in that line of sight range. But I'm curious, in Sweden, what are the drone regulations like? Was it easy to get? What, did you need any permits to do this? Because again, as you're describing this, most people are like, okay, you're flying a drone. It's what is it doing? The risks of crash. And then meanwhile, we're talking about knives and like rollers and stuff. So I'm just curious, like, what are the rules like in Sweden? And was it an easy process to get to meet the safety and certifications or regulations that you needed to even do your trials?
Uh, uh, yes, absolutely. We got a permit from the Swedish Transport Agency, and it still took a lot of effort. And already from the beginning, we saw that if we will succeed with this, we need to work with the safety and all this stuff from the beginning, and building building it into the organization and the culture in the company. So that's the basic, and it's a long process to get a permit to fly this type of drones. Uh, but when you have the permit, it's more easier to add on modules on the permit for like fly beyond the visual line of sight. It's also easier to like add on like extra weights and also permits. So today we have a permit to fly in Sweden, but in Europe we have the same regulation foundation. That means that if we have a permit in Sweden, it's easy for us to expand in other European countries. And due to the way we have this permit system in Europe that are similar to the Northern America and Canada, so we see that we have a kind of smooth transition to come to Canada, for example, and perform commercial scening from there with these drones.
Very cool. Very cool. So I guess I'm thinking of what AirForestry is doing, and in my simple brain, to thin the trees, you need to know which trees to thin. So maybe for our listeners, what does that world look like? Are we into basic GIS? Someone is going out and doing checks on the ground with their boots again. No carbon at play. Good old sweat equity and boots. What's that piece look like?
Uh, I think in some markets, maybe people will like stamp the tree from the ground with like a GPS coordinate that I would like to save or remove this tree with like a special toy or some a pen or something you can mark the trees with. Uh, but for example, in the Scandinavian forest, no one go out and like marks trees today. It's the machine operator that selects the tree, and he need to be quick in decisions. You need to have one tree in the harvesting head each minute to be profitable. So it's a lots of the random that making the decisions today in the forest. He just sweeps and make a fast glimpse like, oh yeah, this tree, it's kind of straight, so probably good timber quality in the future, and it's look healthy in the top, and then I maybe save that and go for the rest around, but not paying so much attention and effort in like really selecting the best trees. So we think we can actually do it much better from above, in that sense that you would like to keep the trees with the best possibilities to enable future growth by looking at how much fir needles and leaf they are on the tree, and promote these trees that have a good motor and engine to store carbon and accumulate it in the timber. let's say. So that's like the basic permits. We look at these trees that have the best possibilities to survive and create more timber. These we will save, but of course we would like to know the stem form so you can promote, and we can see that we can actually look through the canopy a little bit by leaders, secondary, echo, and get a hint at least of what type of shape we have on the trunk.
Interesting. So for those who don't know me, it's like I'm generally pretty quick at connecting the dots. So what I'm hearing at some point, AirForestry, and you don't have to say yes or no, as opposed to this is just me speculating, but at some point, maybe AirForestry is going to have some remote sensing capabilities, maybe some AI capabilities to do vision and automatically determine what tree is the best candidate to be thinned. That's amazing. In all honesty, like fascinating to think of a world that way. And so, thinking of that, what has been the Scandinavian forest industry response to the vision that AirForestry has presented? It sounds like there's still some work to be done. There's lots of cool engineering. Get to a higher technology readiness level. But how has the industry embraced the vision? Have they come full steam behind, or do you have the harvester community or contractors going like what the heck? It's like, if you do that, then what about our jobs? Like what has the industry said so far?
Yeah, but the industry was really like, wow, what a next step in at least the thinning operation, because today the thinning operation is like little behind in the development. They are not focusing, the machine manufacturer are not focusing so much on thinning machines. So and today the need to take up this strip road or access roads to access the forest, and need to cut down more than 20% of young forests to reach the forests. And just by looking on that, the extra growth that we enable in the forest companies a lot, and that adds value to the forest owner and the future forests. And on top of that, we don't destroy the forest floor, forest soil and roads, creating more healthy and more vital forests for a future more drought, more windier climate. So we have a more resilient forest against insects, storms, and droughts, and so on. So this means that we create a more resilient forest for the forest owners. So it's a good investment for them. So they are really backing up this system. And we have a collaboration with the biggest forest owner in Europe, Sveaskog, that owns 4 million hectares of forests. So they are a partner with us today, and they are following our development and helping us with test forests next to our office where we are sitting. So we have really close to forest to try and develop the system.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt having a champion like Fiasco to back you and provide validation that the future could look this way. I'm curious with the digital forester, like this is pretty cool. Like we're talking about drone, we're implicitly talking about GNSS because you need to know where that drone is. We're talking about, like harvesting heads, even though they're not on a traditional machine. Like mind is blown from this guy here. Thinking about where you want to go next, what are some of those technologies that you're excited in your CEO role and doing your strategy and looking forward? What does the next 6 months, year to maybe 3 years look like? Because I'm getting the sense that AirForestry is moving very quick. It's doing a lot of engineering prototyping. You've got it to a stage where it's ready for more maybe intensive trials, and you're solving that power management side with in-field battery recharge. But what are there any technologies that are still missing that you need to address, or what is the thing that gets you excited over the next 6 month, 1 year time frame?
Yeah, so basically, I'm really like seeing that the future comes with possibilities. It's like my key driver. I see like there are only possibilities and opportunities in the future, and that's make me excited. And what's happening with my research earlier and what's have come together is all these different type of techniques and fields that have come together. Like drone technology is proven and working, optimization, AI, picture recognition, and these works. Batteries are really efficient now, getting down in price. So all these have like getting to one singularity point where have enabling this drone harvester to become to live. So from my point of view, all necessary elements are already in place to make this system working actually in operation. So
Very
now it's
cool.
just a matter of engineering to make an integration of all these type of techniques.
Yeah, I love how you say that as a someone trained as an engineer. Oh, it's easy. It's just engineering at this point. You know, the rest of us are probably like, oh, I don't even know where to start or how to like get all this stuff going. So super cool to hear. So maybe in the air forestry journey, looking further out, paint the picture. Like I know, like if we're listening to the words carefully, right? Like obviously, climate. We're talking about climate without even talking about climate because we're invoking fossil fuels, the reduction or
Mhm.
elimination of fossil fuels, at least for thinning operations. And then when we think about other things you said, clearly there's a green component or a climate tech component. You know, as I'm listening carefully,
Mhm.
stitching what the vision or strategy could be for you, like I can already see a path forward. But thinking maybe 5 years, 10 years, what does the world look like from Air Forestry seat? Is it every operations has a battery wall or unit in the field, and then Air Forestry technology is deployed and doing thinning operations, and it's all autonomous because it's driven by AI. You don't even need to train it; it knows. I'm just going to use vision to figure out what needs to be thin, and off we go. What is that maybe not 10-year, but maybe that 5-year vision look for Air
Mhm.
Forestry? What's the world look like from your seat?
I mean, in 5 years from now, we will see that we have operating stations in service uh, a lot. And as you say, we probably have not every function already. So you just can like make all decision by itself, but it will be fairly autonomously operating. But we still aim to have like 2 operators in the field to run these systems. And why we choose 2 operators is we will move away from like solitary work in the forest because we see that so much risk to be alone in the forest with bad cellular mobile connections. Going out just on the roads to the operating station is a dangerous trip in these really rarely trafficked roads that they are. So we will see like 2, and these main task they have is like this: look for the drone station, that it works, safety are in place, the maintenance, and also looking at the quality of the work the drone's doing, and sometimes maybe helping a drone to do some decisions also. And you ask also, like in another question, like how contractors look on our systems, and I know a lot of contractors in Sweden at least have the issue to find operators to drive their machines due to long hours out in the field. You never really know if you're going to get back home in time because if something breaks down and so on. And we can see that we can make a more better working environment in these cabins. On the roadside it's easier and also this full body vibration is it's easier maybe to attract a new generation of forest workers for this type of system. With it said, I will say, like I think the traditional machines wheelbase will be there, so people that will work in the machine, it will still be work for them, but I think just for the scening operation it's really demanding work, and I think they have hard time today to find good persons that are willing to work in these type of conditions. So
Yeah,
so for the contractors I've talked to in Sweden, they say, okay, when can I operate an air forestry system? Because they see a
yeah.
potential to find people and make a better work and a better service with an air forestry system.
Yeah, very cool,
Um,
very cool. So even more levers like value proposition, right? Like
mm,
we've heard time and time again, anywhere in the world, that workforce, whether the older workforce, retiring and not being able to replace it. Interesting. I think that's a broader issue. I'm still trying to understand why young minds aren't coming into forestry, like what is causing that across the globe. But the flip side is when you describe that, I sit there laughing because I know so many young teenagers that love to fly drones, right? It's like a game to them. And then in some
Absolutely.
respects, hey, do you want to get paid to fly a drone as your job? And you can game it, like if you thin more trees than
Mm.
Ule, then you're going to get more points and more money. It's like it's kind
Exactly,
of this
exactly.
funny scenario where it's like, wow, it really could work, right? And tap into a
Mm.
different workforce. So that's very cool. So thinking of a couple last questions, as we go forward from the business model point of view, and again, I'm trying to channel the listenership or
Mm.
the viewership. For Air Forestry, is it like a platform as a service model where you're going to have the platform, or are you really selling the drones, or is it, or hire the Air Forestry team? Like looking to the future, if there's some listeners that are like, I want to do a trial, I want to try this thing out.
Mm.
What's that model? Are you a hardware company and selling it, or are you a service provider, or are you a mix, or what can you share on that front?
Yeah, exactly. We will start by selling a service from Air Forestry. So you're buying the service from Air Forestry. We hiring the operators by Air Forestry. But in the long run, when we have that how a station works and runs, we see a solution that we can have contractors like being licensed to use Air Forestry's products. But we will probably not sell like a drone. Here you got a drone, take care of it the best way because it's so much automation in it. So we see that we probably need to own the system and more lease it out for a contractor to operate or system uh,
Right.
in the long run. But in short run, we will provide the service by Air Forestry.
Right, right. So thinking of your career, really, obviously, coming from a technical background, I always like to come full circle to that origin story. As a kid, with your parents and grandparents working the farm and still doing that, as you said, as your physical activity. I sometimes joke I need to find my wood lot so I can get more exercise than just sitting in this office chair, right, every single day. But thinking of young Ule and where you are today, is this where you thought you would be? Is this the path, as you kind of think to younger days, and we all have these dreams. Like this is some pretty leading edge, bleeding edge stuff you guys are doing it with some hardcore engineering.
Mm.
Would you say that this was a path you kind of saw coming young age through your studies, or is this maybe like, wow, like it's so I'm in the seat as CEO of Air Forestry, love it. But is this a surprise to you, or is this just a natural progression of the research you were doing?
I think it may probably kind of natural development of myself. I've always have big visions and dreams, and in some sense a little unafraid to do stuff. So probably it would ended up in something like this. But so I'm used to just jump out in the unknown. So that's a little in my personality, I think. But I have bleed into my time and waiting for the right moment, I think. And now it's popped up when Moritz and Marcus come by with this idea, with this drone, and they have the competence to perform. And I saw all my research on the Skogforsk working with the working environment in the machines, the full body vibration, the mental stress that operators have, the damaging the machines do on soils and roads in thinning operations, the energy inefficiency that the machines have, how can we electrify these, and so on. And the automation challenges, it's so hard to navigate and traverse off-road ground, select trees and then soft soil, and so much parameters. And they're like, okay, we remove all my research questions by a snap by moving it up to the air. It's easy to fly from one point autonomously. We don't destroy the ground. We make better working environment and everything. Like we need to do something on this. So like if something is so important, so good, even if it's really hard and unknown, you need to do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But at the same time, there had to be a moment where you thought, why didn't I think of that? After all those years of research, why didn't I think to go to the air? No?
Actually, I had that thought by myself, like, can we do it from the air? Can we make like a zip line over the forest? How can we do it, like zeppelins and so on? But it's always come down to like, oh, it's probably too energy consumption. It's too much work. It's too much setup time for the systems. So like, no. And this, well, maybe no. And then when Moritz present the energy uses of this battery-driven drone, it was like, now we can do it. We can actually lowering the energy consumption to move a certain amount of wood from forest to roadside by doing it by drone. So we do this more energy efficient from the air than running on the forest floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Incredible.
amazing, and that was like the last piece to go all in this type of idea.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. So thinking of digital foresters who are listening, and as I said, like I don't want to portray AirForestry tech as so far out there because you're doing it now, but at the same time, as we think about other conversations with past guests, you are out there in terms of you're really working on hard problems and you have the right engineering chops. I think your head count's 21, so I'm assuming you have some
Mm.
investor dollars backing you and you're scaling per se. But for those people who want to, as we're looking to wind down, for those people who want to reach out to you, like, is this hey, call me if you want to do a trial, if you want to buy, we're ready to go. Like, what's the best way? Well, what's the state right now, I guess, in terms of you, I'll just call it taking new orders, new business orders, or taking new sales. Is AirForestry ready today? And if so, then what's the next steps for someone listening who says, hey, I got plantations, I need this technology now, or I want to try it?
Yeah. So basically, like easiest to connect with me is using my LinkedIn, Olle Gellin at LinkedIn, and reach out there, connect to me. You can start from that point. For like private forest owners today, it's an early stage. We see some years in the future we can serve all, like private foresters. In the beginning now, we see that we will try to work with like bigger forest companies that can provide bigger areas of forest to try out. It's easier to plan with them, but we will for sure delivering our service to all out there that needs to have a forest thinned out in some manner. So that's our goal, to be a provider of commercial thinning operations, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. And I suspect, given where you are, because I'm not sure I've spoken to someone like AirForestry, I assume all this engineering, there's some heavy patents that are being prepared as well to protect the investments and the engineering in terms of IP that you guys have generated. Especially so cool the drone you said with the rotated blades. I was like, that's so cool. Like I did see it on the website. I was curious to know why it was designed that way. But again,
Mm.
as you said, your co-founders, lots of engineering background there. So the last odd question I always love to ask is that when you think of yourself, and your younger self, like if you were to give that younger forester, and nowadays we're
Mm.
really trying to kind of brand them as digital foresters because they're coming with their smartphones, their Xbox, different skill sets. Is there a piece of advice you would give to the people that are listening that are younger than us, maybe in some cases way younger than
Yeah,
us? Any
exactly.
tips or advice you'd give them?
But I will send the word, like as I mentioned earlier, like there are only possibilities. Like take care of them, the possibilities, and dare to embrace them. And for us, a younger me, as I say, so like I have put a lot of ideas behind me because other people around you are like telling like, no, you can't do that. Why not? Ask yourself, why can't I do that before you put the ideas in a drawer or a chest somewhere? Because the idea that you have might be the next big thing to focus on. So dare and believe in your possibilities, and look forward. The future come with opportunities and possibilities, I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, it was great chatting with you. For our listeners, hopefully you loved it. As our viewers, you can see Ule smiling all the time. As he says, there's only opportunities. I can tell he means that in the most sincere way. He's an entrepreneur, pushing things forward. So, hey, I really appreciate you joining me on this podcast. Super cool learning about AirForestry and what you're doing and the cool technologies, the innovations, the R&D, and now commercialization work that you're doing. So I'm looking forward to seeing, these autonomous AirForestry 6.2 meter devices with custom harvester head roaming around. And if you ever come to Canada, let me know, because I'll be the first one to bring my lawn chair and my cooler to sit there and help swap a battery or do whatever you need just to see this in action. My mind's blown away. So thanks so much, Olle, and really appreciate you coming to this podcast. I'll give you parting thoughts. Any last words you wanted to share about AirForestry?
No, yeah, basically like follow us on our homepage and LinkedIn, and we will progress really quick. So it will be amazing. We have an amazing journey in front of us, and we are moving fast. So please
Absolutely.
follow us, and
Absolutely. For sure. So people who want to reach out, best thing, as I said, LinkedIn, Olle Gellin, so OLLE for us North American non-Swedish or Scandinavian speakers, OLLE, and then last name is GELLIN. If you search for Olle on LinkedIn, you'll find him. And as Olle said, follow AirForestry and what they're doing, because there's some cool stuff coming out of that shop. So Olle, again, thanks so much for joining us. Have an awesome day, and I look forward to meeting you in person someday soon.
I hope so. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye. Stay safe.